Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Ivana Stark, State Director of Clean Water Action. Kyle Rosas, our Deputy Director, is also on this call. He will be manning the Q&A section. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and pop that in at the bottom of your screen. You'll see a little icon that says Q&A, and we will address all the questions at the end of this PowerPoint. At the end of this, we will go over and look at the toolkit that we have created that can help you when you go to Caucus. I also want to acknowledge everything that is happening in the state of Minnesota, and I am just so grateful that you all decided to come and be here. I hope that this feels like an extension of your community as well. And if anything is happening that you need support or resources for, please do not be shy. Reach out to us at any time. So, Clean Water Action, we have a 501(c)(3) and a 501(c)(4), which means that we are able to do political work. We were founded in 1972 to support the passage of the Clean Water Act. And a lot of people will ask me, why is a water organization involved in democracy? Because we can't have clean water without a healthy, functioning democracy. That's really important to us. We've been in Minnesota since 1982, and we work to ensure that everyone has clean, swimmable, and drinkable water for generations to come. And then we also get to work on democracy and voting rights and elections work. You can find us on social media. All of our links are down below. So we work to harness grassroots power by engaging and mobilizing our supporters to become active clean water voters. So we help you understand which candidates are going to work to protect your water in a variety of ways. So who am I? I'm Ivana. I'm the State Director of Clean Water Action Minnesota, and I have about 20 years experience working in elections and various campaigns. I'm also a Minnesota Senate staffer, so I have a keen understanding of what the legislative process is like, and I am an elected official myself. I just started my third term on the Philly School Board. I've been a volunteer officer for our Senate district, and we're going to talk later about what that means, and my degree is in political science and history. And then I went off and got my master's in political management and advocacy from the George Washington University in Washington, D.C. So, what is caucus? The word itself can be a little confusing. Why don't they just call it a meeting? So, let's talk about what caucus actually is. So, some states pick candidates through a primary process, some states pick through a caucus process. We use our local political units as the vehicle to decide who gets the party endorsement. So you might have 5 people who want to run for state senate, but only one of them gets to run as a Republican or a Democrat. We're going to talk about both major parties' caucuses processes in this conversation. It's also really important to note that the caucus process can fail. So, Governor Walz ran for the endorsement to be the DFL candidate for governor. He actually lost it. Now, Senator Erin Murphy received that endorsement. He challenged her to a primary. He won. Erin May Quaid, who is a sitting senator, some of you might remember from the news, actually went into labor with her baby during her convention process. She did not get the endorsement. She challenged the person who did get the endorsement to a primary election and won. So while we have this caucus and convention process, it is not completely set in stone. Anybody can run in a primary. So in the state of Minnesota, all caucuses will be held on February 3rd. Registration must begin by 6:30 and caucus must be called to order by 7 p.m. How long your caucus lasts will depend. I live in Fridley. My caucus is typically pretty short, but looking at areas like Minneapolis, St. Paul, those meetings can go deep into the night. You're going to experience precinct elections, candidate visits, delegate elections, and resolutions. And we're going to talk about what all of those things are and how you engage. So, what is caucus? It's a hyper local meeting of the members of a particular party. I'm more accustomed with the DFL caucuses. We do have information on the GOP caucuses. I'm going to talk a lot about my lived experience. This is a situation where you're going into a room, they're usually in schools, and you're sitting with your literal neighbors, the people who live on the street, the people you see at night to unite, the people you see when you're walking your dogs. And you're going to talk about community issues. You're going to talk about community concerns, maybe goals you have for your community. It's going to be things like, I'm really angry about the roundabout that they're putting down the street. That construction really concerns me. Hyper local issues like that. And then you're going to consider resolutions and vote on delegates. So if you go to the caucus and you run to be a delegate for the convention, we're going to talk about that process as well. So caucus is really just a group or a meeting. When you Google the word, that's what it means. It's a conference of members. It's a group, it's a meeting. Why do they call it a caucus instead of a meeting? I have no idea. It's just the way it is. So here we have the major congressional districts in Minnesota. We have one statewide convention. We have 2 U.S. Senate seats. We have 8 congressional seats. We have 67 senators and 134 House members with 4,104 precincts. So when you go to precinct caucus, each of those individual precincts has their own physical space where you're meeting somebody. In the state of Minnesota, everyone is in a Senate district. If you think about it like this, if you can see my hands, every Senate district has 2 House districts, an A side and a B side. So I live in Senator Mary Kunesh's district. I am on State Representative Aaron Cagel's side of the district. The other side of the district is Representative Sandra Feist. So if I need something from my state legislative delegation, I go to Representative Cagel and Senator Kunesh. Now, my neighbors on the other side of the district will have Senator Kunesh and Representative Feist. We have 2 major political parties, and to be a political party in Minnesota, there is a statutory threshold that you have to meet. And then we have 2 minor parties. So our 2 major parties are the Democratic Farmer Labor Party, DFL, and there's a really long, interesting history as to why we are the DFL party rather than the Democratic Party. It's kind of nerdy. If you want a great book on it, email me. I will send you the title. But it was basically a joining of the Democratic Party and the Farmer Labor Party. They realized that they didn't have a lot of political power separate. They joined together and nobody could decide which part of the name to drop. So it became the DFL party. Our minor parties are the Forward Independence and Libertarian parties. And down below on this screen, you can see what total number of candidates are needed to be considered a major party. Oh, there we go. So here is a terrible map. And now my computer is got a mind of its own. So here is a terrible map that is really hard to read. You can find this on the Secretary of State's website, but I put it up here to give you kind of an idea. When you look at the shaded regions, so this light color and this dark color, for example, this is one Senate district, but it's split into 2 House districts. So you can see up here again, this is one Senate district, and then you've got the A side and the B side. When you look at the metro, it gives you an even bigger headache. Over here is where I live, and up here is the A side, down here is the B side, but the same senator represents both the A and B side. So these maps, again, are available on the Secretary of State's website. Our Secretary of State, Steve Simon, has tons of information that I'm about to show you as well, but it's a very user-friendly website. So, where do I caucus? That's an excellent question. You can literally go into Google and type in where do I caucus MN, and this website will pop up. You want to make sure you're looking at the Secretary of State's website. This is what it'll look like. So once you're in the website, there's this handy dandy little caucus finder that you can click on. You enter your address, make sure that you put in your zip code as well. So I put in my address, and this has actually been corrected. We are caucusing somewhere else. But you can find where your polling place is. Once the ballot is populated, once we know who the candidates are, you can go to this website and see everything that's going to be on your ballot, whether it's candidates, whether it's a school levy, something that your city is proposing, it will all be on this website. And then you can go down here and it'll tell you exactly where to go. So I can also figure out where my polling place is. And down here, it tells me every single legislative or county district that I'm in. So I'm in County Commissioner District 7 for Anoka County. I'm in the Fridley School District. If I want to research my judicial races, all of this is found on the Secretary of State's website. So why should you caucus? This is one of my favorite questions. So over here, there is this lovely woman who's giving an impassioned testimony about some very dangerous toxic chemicals that make their way into our water called PFAS. And she is really trying to tell her story. And this gentleman here is the author of the bill that was trying to essentially make it easier to have toxic water. And he's texting. He's not listening. He's not paying attention. This guy makes decisions for you. So if that upsets you, and if that's your elected official, then going to caucus is the first step in replacing who your elected officials are. When somebody says there are no good candidates on my ballot, getting involved at the caucus and convention level gives you the opportunity to have an influence on who your candidates are, to make sure that the candidates who are representing you actually represent your values and your morals. And caucus also gives you a community connection. There are a whole bunch of people in my little pocket of my precinct that I've gotten to know through caucus. So when I see them at lawn sales or night to unite or when we're out at the park with our kids, I've literally said, like, oh, I recognize you. I met you at caucus 2 years ago. So it's just a really great way to get to know people. So precinct chairs, these I'm going to touch on the DFL rules because the DFL rules are a little bit different than the GOP rules. They're a little more strict. So you elect a precinct chair and you get up to 2 vice chairs. If your chair identifies as male, then one of your vice chairs must identify as female. If your chair identifies as female, then one of your vice chairs has to not identify as female. I hope that makes sense. You will identify and organize community members to engage with the party. And then you will attend locally held meetings. So our Senate district meets once a month. So you go to caucus and you can sign up for a role in the Senate district. You could sign up to be the precinct chair or vice chair. You can sign up to do other sorts of volunteer work with the Senate district. It's a 2-year term and you can nominate yourself. Usually what happens is you show up at the precinct caucus and they say, okay, we need a precinct chair, and somebody will raise their hand and offer themselves up as a sacrifice. It's a pretty thankless job. So if there is an event that the district, and this goes for both parties, if there's an event that the district wants to publicize or something that the district wants, that the party wants the community to know about, they'll reach out to the precinct chairs, and then it's your job to reach out to the people who live within your precinct to let them know what's going on. You can expect candidate and elected official visits. I'm a school board member, so I try to bop around to as many rooms as possible, let them see my face, see if they have any questions about what's happening in the public school system. You're going to see any candidates in our Senate district right now. On my House side, our House member is retiring. We have 3 people running for that position. I'm going to expect to see all 3 of them pop into my precinct room and give me an elevator pitch. An elevator pitch is called an elevator pitch because you're supposed to be able to give it in the time it takes you to ride on an elevator. So if you think of the business world and you get in the elevator with somebody that you are trying to pitch, once they get to their floor, they're off that elevator. You have a very short amount of time to send your message. So they're going to come in, they're going to speak quickly, they might have some information to hand out. It's a really great way to learn about who's running for office, and you should come prepared with questions when you see them. So caucuses will select delegates. This is where we start to think about the convention. So each precinct gets a certain number of delegates and a certain number of alternates. So if you become a delegate and you can't make it to the convention, then they'll call up an alternate. This can go really quickly in some districts. Like my precinct caucus, we usually have more spots to fill than we have people who show up. In other communities, these elections can go on for quite a while and get kind of spicy. So everyone's community is going to be a little bit different. Sometimes it's just who wants to be a delegate. You raise your hand. Sometimes people get up and they give speeches and they're trying to persuade, and it can turn into a whole little thing. So it really just kind of depends on where you are. You can also bring resolutions. When we finish this portion of the conversation, I'm going to walk you through a toolkit that we created where you can see the resolutions, both the DFL version and the GOP version. This is basically an opportunity for you to influence your party platform. All political parties have a platform that states clearly what they believe, what their values are, what sorts of legislation they're going to work on. If you have something, a pet project that you're really passionate about that isn't a part of your party platform, but should be, this is the time to bring that forward. And there is a specific written form that you use to do that. You can print the form that we have. We've got blank options, and then we have some that's auto-populated with resolutions that we're supporting. Each resolution is one idea. Some people walk in with no resolutions. Some people walk in with 10. It's up to your precinct to decide if it's a good idea and you want to pass it on. So if there's something that's a good idea, we'll talk about the DFL first. There's a level. So you go from precinct caucuses to the Senate District Convention. From the Senate District Convention, you become a delegate, go to the Congressional District Convention. From the Congressional District Convention, you get to go to the State Convention. At the State Convention, that's where you pick candidates for governor and the other constitutional offices. The constitutional offices are auditor, secretary of state, attorney general, governor, lieutenant governor. Congressional district conventions will decide who's going to run in that particular congressional district. So, I live in Ilhan Omar's congressional district. If there was somebody that was going to challenge her for the endorsement, that would happen at that specific meeting. So for the DFL to approve a resolution to become a part of the party platform, it has to work its way up through 2 congressional districts and 5 other organizing units. So what that means is we have to find 5 Senate districts in the entire state to approve a particular resolution, and those 5 Senate districts need to be in at least 2 congressional districts, and then those 2 congressional districts pass it to the state. The GOP is much simpler. They have no minimum numbers. And so I was speaking with somebody who has done a lot of work over on that with the GOP, and she said that their pro-life position started with one passionate person. It took one person to bring it up through their local precinct caucuses to their Senate district meeting, to a congressional district meeting, to their state convention. So it's a little bit easier over there to push resolutions through. So here's another visual of the caucus and convention process. So you go to your precinct caucus. You're going to elect precinct chairs and vice chairs. You're going to elect delegates and alternates to attend over here. You're meeting your neighbors, you're discussing community issues, you're hearing from elected leaders, and you're voting on resolutions. Once you become a delegate or an alternate and you bop over here to your Senate district convention, which can be anywhere from like March, April, you're going to do the same thing, but for a level. Now you're electing and you're electing and organizing your Senate district leadership. So every Senate district has a chair, a vice chair, a treasurer, a secretary, and then there are just people who go to the meetings and volunteer and participate. Then you're going to endorse your state rep, you're endorsing your state senator, you're becoming a delegate to the convention for the Senate, for the congressional district. So what this usually looks like, at least in my Senate district, when we get to the point in the agenda where they're electing delegates to go on to the congressional district, they literally call you all up on stage and they grab a microphone and they go down the line and you just say, "Hi, I'm Ivana. I'm a school board member. I really want to take this particular resolution to the congressional district," or "I've never been to the congressional district convention. I'd really like to try it." Whatever your reasons are, you just state your reasons and then people vote. You're going to hear from all levels of elected leaders. Particular Senate districts are more likely to have constitutional officers, candidates for governor, things like that show up. It's hard for some of those higher level top ballot races to go to precinct caucuses because precinct caucuses are all on the same night, all at the same time, where Senate district conventions are popcorned throughout about 2 different months. And they work really hard to make sure that there aren't too many scheduled on the same day so that some of those folks can get around and give as many speeches as they can. Same concept when you move on to the congressional district convention. And then when you move on to the state convention, everyone wants to go to that. That, if you are a political nerd, and I say that with all the love in the world because I am a nerd, you really want to go to the state convention. That's where the candidates for governor, the candidates for US Senate are going to call you. They want your vote. They know that you are picking who the candidates are going to be. So it's a really great opportunity to interact with folks from around the state. It's a great opportunity to interact with the various candidates. And then this is also where you're going to finalize your resolutions. So what happens after the convention? So we've now gone from precinct caucuses to the convention. You're going to go to those monthly meetings. They can be, maybe I shouldn't use the word fun, but our Senate district, for example, will go out to eat after, and it really is a great way to build a sense of community. Those monthly meetings discuss current events. They plan events, they plan fundraisers. There's all sorts of different subcommittees. Going to these monthly meetings and being a part of this convention process allows you to engage with the party. Again, you're going to get on all sorts of email lists. You're going to get invited to all the things. You'll collaborate with your congressional districts. You're going to collaborate with your county leadership and state level leadership. There's also constituency caucuses. So for example, with the major parties, I'm more familiar, again, full disclosure, with the DFL side of things. But we have things like the Feminist Caucus, the Environmental Caucus, Veterans Caucus, Disability Caucus, Senior Caucus. And these entities are separate from your monthly meetings. So the Senior Caucus meets once a month at a cute little cafe. They like to endorse candidates. And it's an opportunity for you to dive into specific issues that you're super passionate about. The Feminist Caucus gives awards out to particular individuals every year that have done things that they're excited about. So there's lots of opportunities to engage with a constituency caucus that you are particularly passionate about. You also plan for the next election cycle. This is the biggest role for the Senate district. So the Senate district will do things like create draft ballots, and they'll mail those ballots out so that people can, I usually actually have one right next to my desk. They will mail ballots, sample ballots out, so you can bring that with you when you vote, and you can see every level of elected seat that the party is endorsing. They fundraise for candidates, they door knock, they phone call, they might do their own version of mailings and outreach, and they do recruit candidates for every level: school board, city council, state legislature. So if you really like the election process and you want to help your local candidates, getting involved in your monthly meetings with your Senate district is a really great way to do that on both sides of the aisle. There is just again a general doing general leadership and outreach, helping people connect with resources. Our Senate district is doing a lot right now to do things that are helping the communities that are the hardest hit right now. And then you also prepare and execute the next round of caucuses. So when you go to your caucus, the people who are checking you in, making sure you're at the right place, organizing everything, more than likely, those are the folks who go to the monthly meetings and participate in one way, shape, or form. So, this is everything we have about the caucus and convention process. Before we jump into the toolkit, are there any questions? Okay, it doesn't look like there are. So, I'm going to exit out of this. And we are going to go over here to this Google folder. This is shareable, and if this is something that you are interested in, please let me know. I can actually also just put it in the chat. This first file right here are blank caucus forms. There are instruction forms in all of these files, so don't feel like you have to take a bunch of notes. If you go in, there are two forms here. This one is if you can't attend a caucus. Right now, there are a lot of folks who are worried about leaving home. You still have the opportunity to participate. You fill this out, you send it to your district leadership, or have a friend or family member bring it in. And then if you want to become a delegate, you just mark what you're interested in, and then your precinct will vote on that. This is a blank resolution form. So you fill it all out, and then you bring it in and your precinct caucus votes on it. Now, when we go back here, in this caucus training, there's a copy of this presentation. This is something that could be very handy. When you go to the Secretary of State's website, you can find your location, fill it in here, fill in what your Senate district is, what your House district is. It can get confusing, and we just fairly recently went through redistricting. So I'm finding a lot of people that are like, I know I live in Senate District, 50, but I don't know if I'm on the A side or the B side. So you can go ahead and write that down here so you don't forget. And then once you get to your caucus, they'll let you know when the convention is. You can write that down. We also have a list of items here that it's just nice to remember to bring, and then a spot for you to leave notes. This is a one-pager that you're more than welcome to print out and use. It's kind of a precinct caucus at a glance, a very truncated, shorter version of what we just went over. It's got the Caucus Finder website, date and time, a reminder of the process, and then some information on the Senate District Convention, what to expect. Our contact information is on here as well if you have any questions about that. This is in here. Everyone that we are going to endorse, we will upload into this file. Right now, we have Jake Johnson for the 1st Congressional District and Aaron Clems for House District 39A. This will continue to grow. And then once we pop into the general election as well, you can come in here and check it out. These people will also be on our website and posted on social media. Right here is all of our model resolutions. This is kind of the key. We've been collecting resolutions from organizations around the metro. Here are the topics, which organization is owning it, and what their contact information is. So my email is right here. If you have questions about any of these, you're going to want to go to these people. And then we have the exact same language. Here is your instruction form. If you have questions about anything in this folder, we have both the DFL and the GOP format. So when you go in here, these have already been populated. So all you have to do is print them out. And it's the exact same language. The language that is in the DFL version is exactly the same for the GOP version. This is probably a really good point to pause and just remind everyone that we are a nonpartisan organization. We don't think that clean water is left or right? We think everyone deserves access to clean water. We have bipartisan support on the majority of the work that we've been doing. So none of this should be a surprise if you show up to a GOP convention or caucus rather with pro-environment resolutions. If you have questions about any of the topics in those resolutions, we have one-pagers and talking points in this file. So go ahead, grab whatever you need. Feel free to print things off, take it with you, quote things. These are all for PFAS data center e-waste plastics. These are all documents that have been given to legislators. So if a legislator sees them, it is all going to be familiar to them. This Yes to Homes document is something that Sierra Club has put together. I am unaware if they have given it to legislators yet, just full transparency there. We also have a list of our endorsed candidates. This is that one pager. We have an instruction document for the entire toolkit. Again, if anybody is like, why is a water group doing anything in the democracy space? This is why. We believe that it is our duty to fight back against voter intimidation, and we are committed to guiding the community through the caucus and convention process. We are prepared to double down and support things like environmental justice, and we do a ton of legislative advocacy. So if there is ever any questions about what we're doing, it is all right here. This document is a living, breathing document. It is going to be updated as conventions are scheduled. There are two tabs, DFL, GOP. We have not been able to find any scheduled GOP conventions yet, but don't panic. Not all of the DFL are scheduled either. We are still really early in the process. A lot of conventions won't be scheduled until they know how many delegates there are going to be, because they have to find a location that is appropriate for how many delegates are coming. So up at the top, we've got the counties, and then as you scroll way, way down, you start to get into the Senate districts. So when you are in your convention, if you go to the Senate District 8 convention, it doesn't matter if you're on the A side or the B side, you go to your Senate District convention. What they will eventually do, if there is a contested race for the people who want to be House members for the A side and the B side, they will separate the groups. So the A side will get a break while the B side is voting, and vice versa. In my Senate district meetings, they just split the room. And there is you can go to these organizing committee meetings and learn about it. There is something called freezing the floor, where if you are not in your seat when your House side starts to vote. So if I'm voting on the 39A side and I run to the bathroom and I'm not in my seat when they shut the doors, I don't get to vote, because they need to make sure that only the A side delegates are voting. So that's the kind of stuff that you learn your first time. And they will tell you, you have 15 minutes, you have this much time. They'll go out into the main areas. They'll do an all call to make sure everybody is where they are supposed to be. You will also be given stickers or pins. We have lanyards that we wear around our neck, and sometimes they're color coded. The A side is blue, the B side is pink, for example. So people will visually be able to help you know where you are supposed to be. And then once we get to the general election, we will have more information in this folder. I have it labeled as under construction right now because we are nowhere near the general election, so we don't really need to worry about that right now. We also have some social media images. I don't know how much any of this will be helpful to you, but if for whatever reason you wanted to tell people about Caucus, this is all stuff that we are posting on our social media, so you can go to our Facebook page and just share it. That's probably the easiest way. I just threw a whole lot of information at all of you. What questions do you have? Are there any questions? Looks like we have. Okay, so a really good question about how our Senate caucus is different from congressional. Isn't Senate part of caucus? Yes. Okay, I'm really, really glad that you brought that up. So there is the state legislature that has state Senate, state House, and then there's the US Congress that has members of Congress in the House, and then the US senators. And I'm sorry if that wasn't clear. When we're talking about Senate district conventions, we're talking about the state. So we don't start talking about federal stuff until we get to the congressional level. I hope that helps. Any other questions? I will put the link. This is a read-only document, and I will put it in the chat, maybe, if I'm allowed to do that. Please feel free to use it. If you have any questions, my email is in there plenty of times. It is, and I will also just put my email in the chat. Feel free to reach out at any time. We will continue to put reminders out on social media. I'm going to check the Q&A one more time to make sure that nobody had follow-up questions. And I will just bounce back here real quick. Precinct Caucus, this is the state Senate district moving into the federal right here. So we do kind of have the feds sandwiched. But if we go back to this handy dandy map, and now my computer is moving very slowly again, I'm sorry. These are all state Senate districts. Okay. So when we go here, so these are our members of Congress. We have 8 of them. And then we have 2 US senators that go into Washington, D.C., and they represent the entire state. So right now, Amy Klobuchar and Tina Smith are our 2 US senators. The entire state gets to vote on them. I am that teeny tiny little 5 there in the middle. So Ilhan Omar is my member of Congress. We've got Betty McCollum in the over in Congressional District 4, for example. So these folks are the ones that are heading out to DC to do the work. Then we have 67 state senators, and I'm going to amend this presentation to make it more clear. Thank you for that. And then our state House members, we have 2 for every 1 state senator. So I hope that clears things up. All right. Do you know if ICE is, oh, wonderful. Do I know if ICE is expected to target precinct locations on caucus night? There have been groups that have been warning their local police departments about this. If you have concerns, I would reach out to your state senator. And again, go to the Secretary of State's website, type in your address, it'll tell you who that person is. Those absentee forms are a really great way to participate. If you are concerned about that. I'm going to be really honest and transparent. We don't know what to expect. They're everywhere right now. We're trying to have these conversations with folks so that they feel empowered and prepared to attend. We don't know what to expect with Bavino leaving and this new gentleman coming in. I've heard he's worse, if I can be frank with all of you. So we are committed to doing as much education as possible so people are prepared. When you fill out this absentee form, let's see here, which one is it? So you are going to fill out your name, your address, your contact information. Please take the time, as a former volunteer having to read these things, to write as legibly as you can, because it's, especially with email, it's so hard to read people's handwriting sometimes. And then you just follow these questions. So then if you want to run for something, you fill that out right here. And it goes in order, like the ward within your city, within your Senate district, within your county. And then your organizing unit is that monthly meeting that we talked about. So if you want to be active in your monthly meeting, hit that one up. And then if you have a certain candidate that you want it to be known that you're supporting. So if you live in a Senate district and it's an open seat and there's three people running for state Senate, you can put that. You can also say you're uncommitted. And so this information, when you sign in, this does get released to candidates. So if you're uncommitted, they're going to call you and they're going to lobby you and they're going to, sweet talk you, which again, political nerd. I think that's fun. And then you have to sign it and you can send it in either to leadership directly. You can reach out to the DFL, phone numbers, that sort of thing, or have a friend bring it in and drop it off. And then the GOP one, they have one too. I'm less familiar with this, but again, print clearly. It's looks like it's a little simpler than the DFL one, but same concept applies. If anybody has questions about the GOP side of things and I didn't answer questions thoroughly enough, I do have somebody that I can connect you with. So tomorrow I do have some friends who couldn't make it tonight, and in all honesty, I just sent them a Teams meeting. So if you have questions, you could hop on that. It's tomorrow at noon. This entire training is in the toolkit as well under Caucus training, and it's just set up like a PDF that you can scroll through. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to me via email. I think that might be all of the questions. Going once, going twice. All right. We went really fast. So if you walk away and are still kind of scratching your head and have any questions, I'm not kidding. Please email me. Um, if you have questions specific to your particular district, we can work through that together as well. And if you need more GOP specific information, I can set you up with somebody so I don't goof it up. All right. All right. Well, if anybody else has doesn't have anything, then I think we are all done. Again, for those of you in Minnesota, be careful, be safe. If you need anything, please reach out. Thanks so much and have a great night.